Hey guys, in this video I will give you a brief introduction about how you can install the Slurpee system. So to start, we provide you with our GitLab repository. In here you have a package registry container where you actually will see all the images available. So if you have already something like Kubernetes out there, you can use those images, load them and start using them. But if you don't and you have Docker or something else, we made like a small brief introduction here, like how you could set up the system, what you could do. There is a short README here with some options you have for a quick start. But if you want more advanced and want to use all the options, there's also a PDF which goes a little bit deeper into details and instructions. To make it extra easy, when you're on Windows or Linux and you have no Docker experience, you can just run the up bat for Windows or up ASH for Linux to start the system and down to close it. So that you don't need to know anything. But if you have Visual Code like I have, you can just like open the main file, make a copy. You can go through, you can see a bit, okay, which parameters do you want to change? For example, the time zone. Do you want to enable debugging? Yes or no? But the most important thing is actually like the portal base URL. So if you use ACPS, make sure you add an S here. If you don't, leave it blank. If you change the default ports, make sure you add them after it. So if we turn this one into 81, make sure you add 81 behind here, and so on, because then Nginx on the background knows how to redirect all the calls. That's basically it. There you do right mouse button up, and the system will kind of run, and you can start using it. Myself, I use Docker Desktop. I like it for like an overview. You have it for every operation system kind of. And there you can see if the portal is running. You can even directly access the terminal if you want to do some hands-on work. You don't need it because we provide everything around it that you kind of don't have to do it. But it's nice to know that it's out there. So the moment the Docker is running, you can access the portal URL you specified to go to the system and use the default login credentials, which you will find here as well. So we use admin and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Of course, it's recommended to change them afterwards. When you're logged in, the first time, well, I already logged in on this one once, a wizard will pop up, this wizard. The wizard explains to you a little bit how the system is set up, and that's also what I want to explain to you in this video. So you can use the system without a license. There is no limitation on all the functionalities. There's only one limitation if you have no license on the amount of data you can collect per batch. I will show that later on. But here in essence, it says everything you need to run the platform. So you can fill in a license. It explains to you that we need devices. And you can add devices through the GUI. You can upload the CSV. We have a device finder out there where you can specify an IP range, an SNMP setup, and it just goes for you, search on the network, and adds every device it finds. And we have a fully documented API where you can, by API, add all the devices. Then we have Vault. It's an open SSL Vault where we can encrypt and decrypt based on keys and salt. So it's pretty safe and open source based. So that's quite cool. So you fill in the credentials you have, and then there are a couple of other steps with some information. Like go through them, take your time to read the text, but I will also explain everything in this video. So when the system is set up the first time, you will see that it says, well, you're almost ready. We miss a couple things. We miss devices and we miss a vault. And on my local network, I have one device running a MikroTik, which I can read kind of. So let's set it up. So first I go to the vault, which you'll also hear on the administrator, and I add my credentials. And now it's good to know. You can make one user, which you can specify as a default, and then by default, the system will use it to log in on everything and do its kind of magic. But if you have multiple users per device type, that's how we set it up. You can also say, well, I create a user for Cisco iOS, for example, and if you have a different one for Juniper, you can create a user per operating system. Oh yeah, we won't do that in this case. So we save it. Perfect. Now we have a vault. Now we need the devices. And to get devices, what I said, you can add them to the GUI or you can use the import function. In this case, I want to use the device finder to show you the magic. So in the device finder, you specify what kind of network you're gonna search. So I use SNMP v3. This is my home network, but in this case, I want to be a bit quicker. So I say, well, only go directly for the host. Fill in the credentials here. And now the system will automatically start, look for the devices, and when he finds one, he will add it. This is something we built a task scheduler around the whole thing. So here you see there is a device finder, and it's a cron job. And if you go here in administrator to the task scheduler, you will see, if I go to the next page, that the device finder will run every 30 minutes. But if you don't want to wait for that, you can just like click on the play button. You get a success back here, and it means it start doing it now. You can also see here at the bottom, like if actually the daemons are online, since it's a microservice system with multiple containers. So it will start. It already did it. You see, the pop-up is gone. It found the device and it added it. So now if I go to devices, it said, well, we found the MikroTik, this IP added by the device finder and the time. So now we can get started. Now we have a couple things. So what we did is we built a platform around some open source solutions. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide back to the open source community as well. So missing device vendors, we will help them and add them. But we did the same with the templates. So we have community templates in here, but we built a solution around it that we grab the latest templates, put them here in the system. But if you make new templates, once a month you will get a pop-up where we ask you if you want to share the templates back to the community. If you say yes, we build like a command and control server in the middle where we will receive your templates, we will test them, verify them, and then upload them to the community. So this way we can help to grow the community, get more templates, which will then be distributed all over all the customers. So that's pretty cool to use open source and enterprise in this way. And here in the templates section, you can see all the templates. So if, for example, I go now to MikroTik, you see like, okay, these are all the things we can read from the MikroTik devices by default. So if I go now here to the edit button, I get the template. I can validate the template. So we test it against the Python code, and Python code says, yes, it's valid. But I can even test it live. So now if I click on my MikroTik and I say, well, test, it's going to run this template against the live device, and it comes back with all the parsed data. So this is really cool. So this way we can really like quickly test, communicate with the device, and see what we can get. And what we did was we built a planning tool. And with a planning tool, you can, for example, say, well, in my network, I want to get all the ARP tables from all the devices, but not just from MikroTik, from all of them. And the difficulty here is that in the community, there is no standardized way to get the attributes kind of. Everybody used different variables, different names. So it's quite tricky to build something around this. It's a lot of customized work. So we built kind of a normalizing system where you can map the values to have it normalized so you can read from your Cisco, your Juniper, doesn't matter, the ARP table, and have it centralized back in one report. So you see here, you can select the variables from the templates, and then you can allocate them to a column, kind of. And you can add new columns, you can change the existing ones. And this way, when a value comes in from the template, we map it for you here, and then you have like one report where you can read all the ARP tables. So this way, yeah, we could use the community templates, even if they didn't really work in a structured way. And there is also some text recognition stuff on the background. So if you add a new template, it will see if the value matches the pattern here. It checks for around 80%. So if there's an 80% match, it will automatically add them here. So it's quite easy to add new templates and to build on your planning. So I can just search here for, well, let's say Nexus. What is it? Cisco, NextOS, ARP, Then you see the command, I do add, and it's in here, but it's already in here, so I'm not going to add it again, but just to say. Then on top of that, we added a couple extra things. You can see here it says type IP and type MAC. We have synchronized with the MAC lookup table from all the vendors. So the moment we know the column is a MAC address, we will also match for you automatically the vendor name. And we do the same with IP. The moment it's an IP address, we will do a DNS lookup. So we also have the FQDN. And you can specify that here per column. So if I change a column, I can remove it, rename it, but I can also say which kind of data type it is. And on top of that, there is a unique key section. And this I will show you a little bit later on. And on top of that, if you want, you can change the order as well for in the report. So now we combined in the planning the templates to have it like normalized. And we have in here also the task scheduler. As you can say when and how often it should run. So every 3 hours from 8 on in the morning, it's going to run this report and get the data. But if you said, well, I don't want it every hour, I want it daily, weekly, yearly, cron-based style, you can just place or change the way we do it, and the system will run and get it for you. So I think this is quite powerful. Then if we go to collected data, you see here the data, you kind of see your planning here. So the planning you created here, it will automatically create a report here. And you see today there is no data yet because the system didn't run yet. Because every 3 hours and I just set it up. So we can wait or we can just do manually call it this time. So now it run. And since I only have one device, it's pretty quick. Like you see here, it runs in 1 second. This was the 18. If I now refresh it, you see it's already finished. So since there's almost no data and only one device, it's really, really quick. So I do it for a couple more things. So now if I go to the ARP table, you will see here, it has the table. Well, it didn't really do a lookup because I have no DNS devices registered in my network, apparently. But you see here, it does do it with the MAC vendor because it's quite static. So it recognizes my Synology, my Roomba vacuum cleaner, everything else. And now there is another thing that if we run this report multiple times a day, you can see here by default it picks today. We'll get the same records over and over. So here you see now 24. If I run it again, you guess it's going to be the same amount or something just connected to my network. And it's different, but it should be more or less the same. Let's see, 29. So it's getting in there now. And this is a bit annoying because you kind of want maybe sometimes unique results. And for that, we have this slider, unique results, which doesn't work on my system. That's annoying. I have to get into that. But what the unique results is doing, you define in the planning here which columns for you together are unique. Because age, for example, can change every minute, more or less. So then when you would do unique, you would still get double results back. So you can specify per column what for you is a unique key. When you click on, I only want unique results. So it verifies IP, MAC, and interface. If that's always the same, you only get those results back. And we can do that for all the other things as well. So if we go here now, you'll see, well, it got the clock. I don't have a thing for interfaces, I see. Let's see, software versions, didn't run yet. VLANs, it's my home network, so there's not a lot in it. Or I didn't run all the, I think I didn't run all the plannings by hand. But here you see hardware info, so you get the serial versions. So it's that's why we call it Slurpee. So it's an easy way to scan the network, get the data, and put it in here. Now, on top of that, we built a Swagger API. So everything you can do here in the GUI, you can also do by API. So we can, you can get the list of devices from the Finder. And you get it in a structured way back. Or we say like, well, give me all the plannings. You see here interfaces, hardware. We used ARP. So we take the planning ID 8. Then if I fold it and I go here to the data collector, I say, well, I want from planning ID 8, copy it properly, 8, all the data. And you see I get back in a structured way all the data I'd found. And it's also the same for the template tester. So the template tester I used in the GUI, it does the same. So you can easily build your own templates, use the existing templates, put them in here, and then just use the API for communication. If something is wrong, you schedule a data collection job, or you schedule it before a job, after a job, or maybe you already have something automating in there where you just need to know some live network data. Now you can just use our API with the microservice platform above, and we will provide you with the data for it. So I think that's pretty strong. And you can do the same with the users, the vaults. So everything is in there to automate the kind of real-time data collection in your network. Now we're still building on it, so there's much more to come. But this is our first version, and I'm quite curious what you think about it. Thanks, and if you have questions, contact us, let us know. There's also here the help button where you can get support, and we're happy to help you.